Welcome to Denman Cookery School. My name is Ashley Keane and today I'm going to show you how easy it is to make pasta at home with just a few ingredients and a little bit of equipment. So what I've got here is some flour. Today I'm using pizza pasta flour, which is a ready made all-purpose flour bought from the supermarket. You could use 00 flour, you could even use all-purpose flour if you want. Of course, I've got some egg yolks, some whole eggs, and some ground up sea salt. I'm going to be using a food processor today because it's quicker, cleaner, a bit easier. You can, however, do it the old-fashioned way, which is where you literally just have the flour, the eggs, use a fork and bind it together by hand. It's entirely up to you. At the end of the day, you're going to end up with the same outcome. So, simple as this, just adding the flour to a food processor, eggs. Sometimes you might find that there's not enough liquid or eggs with the flour. That could be down to how dry or how old your flour is. If this is the case, you can always add a tiny little bit of olive oil or a little bit of water or even a bit more egg yolk just to bring it together. And the salt. Salt is an option. Some people don't add salt to their fresh flour and they instead add a lot of salt to their water that they boil in. In Italy, they say that the water you boil your pasta in should be as salty as the sea, so just keep that in mind next time you're wondering whether to add a bit more salt. So, all that's gone into the mixer. Right on top. It's all on. And then I'm going to start by pulsing, start bringing it together. As you can see, it's already starting to come together in almost like breadcrumbs, a bit like when you're making pastry. So I'm just going to have a check. And what I've got here is tiny little bits, and I can feel that it's moist. And when I'm pushing together, it's starting to form. So, don't cut yourself on the blade. What you can do at this point, if you wanted to practice or to experiment with flavoured pastas, you could add some freshly chopped herbs, sage, parsley, things like that. Some people like to make purees with spinach or even beetroot. If you do this, just remember that you'd want to add less liquid, so less eggs, otherwise you might end up with too much of a moist dough. Now, like when you make bread, with your pasta, you need to develop the gluten. So to do that, we would knead the bread or the dough. With our pasta, I'm just going to knead it for a couple of minutes just to bring it together, because when it comes to rolling with the machine, I'm actually going to roll it over and over again and folding, and that's going to develop the gluten. That's going to knead it for me after its rest. So I'm going to bring this dough together. What you're looking for is quite a stiff dough. If it does stick slightly like it does here, then you'll want to just add a little bit more flour. You don't want to add too much flour where it gets really hard. So I'm just going to add a little bit of extra flour. Have that on hand, just so it's not quite so tacky and sticking to the surface. Okay, so that's come together nicely. Next, what we need to do is let it rest. So first of all, I'm going to chop it in half, because when we start to roll out, what you might find is too much mixture and it'll just break apart and it's too big to go through the machine. So just cut the dough. You can either cut it into 3 or in half, it's entirely up to you. And then I'm going to wrap them in cling film and just keep them at room temperature for about 30 minutes. You can leave it longer, but no less than 30 minutes. In that time, it's going to relax. Any more flour that's dry will start to absorb the rest of the liquid, and then we'll be ready to roll. Okay, so now the dough has rested for just over 30 minutes. It's a lot smoother, it looks completely different. It's now time to roll it out. So here I've got just a normal high street shop bought counter roller. Screws onto the counter. What I've done is put a kitchen towel underneath, because I find it just helps secure it a bit more. I've got some extra flour in case it starts to get tacky, and a rolling pin. Rolling pin, if you don't have one, you could use a wine bottle, or you could also just use your hand to palm it down. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of flour on the surface, and then roll out. The reason I'm rolling is so that when it goes through the machine, it's not too thick and it starts to break off. So just rolling it slightly. It doesn't matter about the shape at the moment because we're going to keep reshaping. Now, if you remember what I said about kneading it to activate the glutens, this is what we're going to do now. So you want to put it onto the widest setting that you have. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep putting it through time and time again, folding between. So make sure that it's covered in flour. Take off any excess. This will stop it sticking to itself and to the machine. Place it in and start to feed it through the machine. And it will come out the other side. And then once it's starting to feed through, you can start pulling it through. Okay, we're going to keep it on that setting. What we're going to do now is we're going to fold it into 3. So what you're getting is more of a rectangular shape to go through. And then just long ways, roll it out. Don't worry about the creases, don't worry about anything, because we're going to keep putting it through. And again, feed it through on the widest setting. You might find it's a bit tough while it's still quite thick. Pull it out, and then repeat. Keep doing this 10 times, and what you'll see is you're going to start to get a silkier, more flexible, so it's almost pulling apart and springing back pasta. Okay, so just finishing off on the 10th roll on the largest setting. So I've now got an even texture. From folding it into rectangles and rolling it, I've got more of an even shape to continue rolling, and I've kept flouring it without too much just to make sure it's not sticking. So next to do is take it down a notch. That's going to reduce the size of the rollers together for when we put the pasta through. I'm going to do exactly as we did before, but this time we're just going to probably do it twice on each one. So feed it through until it's got enough weight, and then pull it out the other side. What you can find, which you may have noticed there, is it sometimes eases off to the side and it gets bunched up. If that's the case, you can gently just start to guide it across again. So I'm going to put it through once more. Feeding it through and bringing it out the other side. As long as there's enough flour, you don't need to pull it out the other side because it's not going to stick together. So that's 2 times it's been through. Each time it's going to get a bit longer, so I'm going to go again, down 1 notch, and I'm going to repeat the same again. What I find is best is if I'm doing shaped pasta, such as tortellinis or raviolis, I want a thinner pasta. Because you're doubling up, you don't want to have thick pasta on thick pasta, and then in your mouth it's just too doughy. Okay, so that was my last roll. Still quite stretchy. I can just about see my fingers through it, but not completely. And we've got a nice shape. So today I've decided I wanted to make some pappardelle, so slightly thicker than tagliatelle. It's great for cream sauces and things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the pasta in flour, both sides, and then what I'm going to do is roll it up. Just gently roll it. The flour's obviously making it not stick. And then with this, I'm going to cut it using a knife. And then I'm going to get a tray with flour on it. And then we've got our lovely thick noodles of pasta. Toss them in flour, and then you just want to shake off any excess flour so you don't get too much gumminess, and they will just cook for 1 to 2 minutes in boiling water. Thanks for watching. For more recipes, subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit the WI website.